My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 63 years old, divorced, and I live in a modern loft apartment in downtown Chicago. I've worked as a financial controller at an architectural firm for nearly 2 decades. I raised 2 children, Julian, my son, who just turned 36, and Sarah, my 33-year-old daughter, and spent most of my adult life ensuring they never had to struggle the way I did after the market crash of '08. Last Thursday, I received a text message that changed everything. It was from Julian. It wasn't a quick update or a sweet message before his big move. We had just spoken about his plans to buy a condo a few weeks ago. I had already contributed $40,000 to help him with the down payment, cover the closing costs, and purchase the high-end appliances he wanted. But when I opened the message, the warmth vanished. Mom. The text started. Not dearest mom, just mom, like a subject header. Julian explained that he, along with his fiancée Chloe and her mother, had finalized the guest list for their engagement party at a vineyard in Sonoma Valley. And after much deliberation, they decided it was best for me to watch the celebration via a private Zoom link, not in person. He added that Chloe's mother was particular about the guest count and wanted to keep things exclusive. At the end, he included a line that felt like a cut. If you want to be a part of it, you can log into the link we've created. Should be just like being here. SMH. I stared at that screen for a long time. The artisanal coffee I was sipping grew cold. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. Something inside me quietly hardened, like ice forming on still water. I replied with just 4 words. Will do. Best wishes. Emotion, no protest, just a quiet, clean break. And I knew deep down that those 4 words would resonate louder than any argument. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted clarity. I wanted the silence to speak for itself. I closed the messaging app, finished my now cold coffee, and got ready for work like it was any other Thursday. But it wasn't. That was the day I stopped pretending that my sacrifices meant anything to my son. That was the day everything began to change. The ride on the L train that morning was quiet. Chicago's biting late fall air was a sharp contrast to the numb feeling in my chest. My mind kept circling the same question: how did we get here? I've spent 22 years at Sterling and Hayes Architecture. It's demanding, but it's lucrative. And financial independence was what I needed after my divorce when the kids were still in high school. I remember standing in the tiny efficiency kitchen of my first rental, bills spread across the counter, trying to figure out how to pay for both the cable bill and Julian's SAT prep course. Back then, I didn't think twice about giving up weekends. I took on freelance projects, canceled trips to see my sister, and ate leftovers while they ate takeout. I told myself, there'll be time for me later. There never was. Every bonus I earned went to Julian and Sarah. When Julian decided to take a gap year to travel through Europe, I paid. When he moved to San Diego for an ill-fated startup, I covered his moving costs and first 3 months' rent. When Sarah cried through her first major career failure at 30, I flew out, sat on her floor, and helped her rewrite her resume. When Julian wanted to buy a condo with Chloe, I provided the first $40,000 check without hesitation. I never kept track. That's what mothers do, right? But that text made me feel like an investment that had finally paid off, and now I was being liquidated. Like I had served my purpose, and my contract had expired. At the office, my colleague, David, a young associate who handles my calendar, stopped by my desk. He's one of those rare people who always brings me a newspaper clipping of a relevant article. He noticed something was amiss immediately. You look like you haven't slept, Eleanor, he said, setting a fresh, crisp copy of the Wall Street Journal on my desk. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say my son just excluded me from his own celebration, but instead, I smiled and said the coffee machine was broken at home. He didn't press. That small act of recognition, the newspaper, the respect, nearly undid me. After all the emotional noise that morning, it reminded me that I still existed, that I still had professional worth. Around lunchtime, my phone vibrated. Julian again. His name illuminated my screen like a warning sign. Missed calls, texts. Mom, why aren't you answering? We need to talk. This isn't helpful. I didn't open any of them. I just sat there sipping my fresh latte and thought, maybe it's time to stop being the one who always responds. Maybe it's time to stop funding a life where I'm not allowed to be a participant. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change the trajectory of all of us. I wasn't going to rage. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to do something far more definitive. I was going to act. After work, I didn't take the train home. I drove my sedan to Northern Trust Bank, a few blocks away from the office. Mr. Rodriguez, the senior wealth advisor, had handled my accounts for a decade. He always greeted me by name. Mrs. Vance, he smiled, rising to greet me. How can I assist you today? I sat down across from him and placed my leather briefcase on the floor. My voice was calm, steady. I need to cancel a pending transfer, I said. He blinked. The one to the condo developer. Yes, that one. Mr. Rodriguez paused. That's a $75,000 transfer, Eleanor. It's set to process tomorrow. May I ask what happened? The agreement has changed, I replied without explanation. He looked something up on his screen. You're in luck. The transfer is still pending authorization. We can reverse it immediately. He paused, looking up at me over his reading glasses. Are you absolutely sure, Mrs. Vance? This is a significant sum for the remainder of the down payment. I nodded. I'm sure. $75,000. That was the amount I had planned to send on top of the $40,000 already given. $115,000 total for a life that was currently excluding me. I signed the necessary electronic forms and left the bank without a second thought. By the time I got home, there were 11 missed calls from Julian, 3 from Sarah. One text simply said, Mom, please rethink this. I put my phone on silent. In the kitchen, I reached for the bottle of vintage Napa Cabernet I'd been saving for a housewarming I thought I'd be attending. I poured a glass, took it to the balcony, and sat down in the cold, fading twilight. The city hummed below. The distant sirens and traffic felt irrelevant. The memories started coming in waves. All the nights I worked until 10 p.m. All the parent-teacher conferences I rescheduled meetings for. All the small sacrifices no one ever noticed. The retirement fund I pulled from. The career change I postponed. The new coat I never bought. Thought about Chloe's mother. The woman who barely knew Julian. Yet her opinion held more weight than mine. The woman whose idea of an exclusive family celebration meant cutting out the person who made that entire life possible. I thought about the way Julian signed off his text with SMH, shaking my head, as if my being upset was the joke. And finally, I thought about myself, not as a mother, not as a provider, but as a woman. What did I want? Respect, peace, a life that didn't revolve around being exploited by the people who only called when they needed money. That night, around 8:30 p.m., the security buzzer rang. I thought about ignoring it but then decided against it. I needed to finish this. It was Sarah. She rushed in, wearing her corporate attire, hair slightly mussed. Mom, she said before I could speak. Why are you doing this? Julian's losing it. He says you're being vindictive. I shut the door calmly. Hello to you, too. She sighed, running a hand through her hair. He says you canceled the $75,000 transfer. Is that true? Vindictive. I repeated, ignoring the question. For not attending a party I was uninvited from. She shifted uncomfortably. Chloe's mother is covering the majority of the party costs, Mom. You know how traditional they are about family exclusivity. Exclusivity, I said dryly. I already gave $40,000. I was about to give $75,000 more. That's not exclusivity. That's a business transaction. She froze. Wait, you were sending another $75,000? I said, sipping my wine. But not anymore. Sarah's face went pale. Mom, they're counting on that for the condo. The deal is contingent on the deposit. The developer is going to walk. Not my problem anymore, I said evenly. Her voice rose. Of course, it's your problem. He's your son. And I'm his mother, I said quietly. A mother who was told to stay home and watch from a link. You always make everything about yourself, she yelled. And that was it. That was the moment something inside me finally shattered. Get out of my house. What? You heard me, Sarah. Get out. Mom, please. No, I said, my voice firm but soft. I've given everything I had, and I'm done being the ATM they visit when they need cash, and the ghost they ignore when they don't. You need to leave. Sarah stood there for a moment longer. Then she turned and walked out. The heavy door of the loft clicked shut behind her, but it felt like a door slamming in my own heart. I stood in the middle of my living room, heart pounding, and realized something startling. I didn't feel guilty. I felt whole. The next morning, I woke up to 55 missed notifications and a string of frantic messages from Julian. They started with aggressive guilt. Mom, we need to fix this. Why are you acting like this? This is cruel. Then the tone shifted. The developer just called. The financing is in jeopardy. We're going to lose the deal if we don't wire the funds by end of the day. At 2:50 a.m., he sent, I don't understand why you would hurt me like this. I smiled into my coffee. Of course, he didn't understand. Julian had grown up with my generosity woven so tightly into his life that he never stopped to question where the comfort came from. He just assumed it would always be there, that I would always be there. But not this time. Later that morning, while I was reviewing blueprints at my desk, a new message popped up in my personal inbox. The subject line read, "Please don't ruin my future." Mom, he wrote, I know you're upset about the engagement party situation, but this is extreme. We've lost the initial good faith deposit, and if we don't transfer the remaining balance by end of day, the entire contract is void. Chloe's mother is beyond upset. They're saying this proves you can't be relied upon. Please don't do this. We can talk about you attending the party, but we need the funds first. There it was. They were willing to talk about letting me attend now that the money was gone. Not an apology, not an acknowledgement of my feelings. A negotiation. As if my presence at my own son's event could be bought, sold, or bartered depending on how financially compliant I was. I didn't respond. I closed the message and turned back to my work. Around noon, David stopped by my desk. Lunch, he offered. There's a great new sushi place near the river. I almost declined, as I usually did. But something in me shifted. Maybe it was the clarity of the past 36 hours. Maybe I just needed to sit somewhere that didn't demand anything from me. So I nodded. I'd like that. Over sushi, I told him everything. When I finished, he didn't judge or try to offer a solution. He just said, sometimes, Eleanor, the only thing a parent has left to give is an example of self-worth. He reached across the table and briefly tapped my hand. I think you did the right thing. For the first time in a long time, I believed that too. That evening, as I pulled into my underground parking space, the air felt crisp and cold. But there was someone waiting for me near the elevator. As I got closer, I recognized her. Maya. She stood up quickly. Maya had been Julian's closest friend since high school. She spent countless hours at our old house, sharing her dreams and fears. I hadn't seen her in years. Mrs. Vance, she said softly. I'm sorry to ambush you. It's fine, I replied, pressing the elevator button. Would you like to come up for a cup of tea? She followed me into the loft. Julian sent you? I finally asked. She didn't answer right away. He's lost the condo. The developer canceled the contract. Chloe and her mother are furious. They've put the party on hold, and they're blaming him. Is that why you're here? I asked. To mediate. She shook her head. No. I'm here to ask, is there anything he can say or do to change your mind about the future? I paused, pouring the water into the tea steeper. Would an apology change the hollow feeling of being used? I looked at Maya, still young, still kind. No, I said quietly. There isn't. Her shoulder slumped. Not even if he truly apologizes? I handed her a mug of tea. Apologies are a reflex, Maya, especially when people are facing financial ruin. But the people who love you, they don't wait until you cut off their funding to see you. Maya looked down into her tea, nodding slowly. I get it, she said. Even if he doesn't. We stood in silence for a moment. Two women from different generations, connected by one painful truth. Sometimes, the strongest kind of love is the one you finally give to yourself. Maya didn't stay long. She just thanked me, hugged me gently, and walked back to the elevator. And I finally closed the door on a version of myself I had long outgrown. The condo deal never went through. The engagement party was quietly postponed indefinitely. According to Sarah, Julian and Chloe are renting an expensive apartment now, and the relationship with her mother is strained. In the weeks that followed, Julian sent one more email, a long one. Emotional, half apology, half list of his financial woes. I read it once, then archived it. I wasn't angry anymore, just finished. There's a strange peace that comes with letting go, not in fury, but in complete finality. For the first time in decades, I wake up not wondering who needs something from me, not bracing for another demand disguised as affection. I made a new rule for myself: if my presence is conditional, then so is my capital. I go to work. I bought a luxurious, small car. I joined a hiking club. I have dinner with friends who see me, not what I can give them. And I've learned something I wish I'd known sooner: you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. A blank check, it's time to choose yourself. Share this story to show others they aren't alone. Comment below, what was the moment you finally drew a boundary that changed everything? And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter for more stories about financial boundaries, self-respect, and reclaiming your worth. The most powerful love you can give is the one you finally give to yourself.